It's an even coat of glaze. So we're looking for even thickness. In clay, we're looking for something even less concerned about it being thin or thick. We don't want it to be wildly thick, like we're not making bricks, but evenness is much more structural and causes a lot less problems. With glaze, we want it to be even, but if it's too thick, it is going to cause problems. It will run off of your piece and it will melt it to the shelf. So the big rules are even glaze, no glaze on the bottom, okay? Does anyone know why? It'll stick. And what happens is it breaks your piece. It's very hard to get a piece off without breaking the piece because it's a lot more fragile than the kiln shelves, but it usually damages both. And we want to, try and avoid that as much as possible. It's extra work. Kiln shelves are
Really
$60 a piece. Yeah, we need 8 or 12 to fill up a kiln, so they get pretty expensive. And someone has to grind it, and you're like grinding glass. So there's so much potential for getting glass in your eye and breathing dust. So big things are evenness and no glaze on the bottom. And I'm going to show a couple of different ways that you can keep glaze off of the bottom of your pieces throughout the demonstration. And I brought a couple of different pieces. Some of these were donated, I think, by you to the studio. So I'm going to glaze some of these today. This is a funky cup I made for a demo for someone, and then I have this too. So they're all different shapes, and how I go about glazing all of these is it's somewhat dependent on the shape and also dependent on what the effect is that I want to have. So this is our glazed wall. This is like the key for understanding everything that's going on in here. And the glaze tests are done primarily on 2 different clay bodies. So there's the white clay body, which we all use in our class. Trinity also sells a red clay body, which some of the glaze tests are done with. So you want to be sure when you're looking at this that you're looking at the test tiles done in the white stoneware. And I'll show you how to identify that in a second. The other thing is that there's many different types of kilns in ceramics and different types of firings. So we have oxidation firings, we have reduction firings, and then another category that's often referred to more generally as atmospheric firings, which would encompass wood firing, salt firing, soda firing, pit firing, mercury firing. So the kind of kiln and the kind of temperature and the kiln atmosphere all makes a big difference with the way the glazes look. So for our class, we're going to be doing either oxidation or reduction firing. And the reduction firing is the big gas kiln that we have outside. Now it takes a lot more pieces to fill that kiln up, so we really only fire it once a semester, but we want to fire it. So I would suggest that all of you, when you're glazing some of your bowls, at least glaze some of them and put them on the reduction kiln shelf out there so that we can fill the kiln up and fire it. But if you come over here and look, you're going to see there's oxidation firing and then there's reduction firing. So oxidation is referring to the kiln atmosphere. This is what happens in the electric kilns. There's an excess of oxygen. Reduction firing is referring to the atmosphere in the gas kiln. Okay. So you're going to be looking mostly at oxidation, except for the couple of pieces you want to put in reduction. And you can see there's 2 rows here. One on top is the white stoneware, and it says WT at the top, which I think means like White Trinity. Trinity's the distributor. And then beneath it is the red stoneware, and it says red. So the colors aren't hugely different in oxidation, but the clays do look, when they're right next to each other, you can see the difference. One is darker than the other. That's an excess of, there's more iron in this clay body. Okay, and you can see that the glazes also look a little bit different. Right, that's a different color blue on the red clay versus the white clay, and same with this, the thinner area. So this is 2 dips and 1 dip. A lot of them will have a disparity in thickness as well. So you can look over here to decide what glazes you want. This is our clay again, the white clay, but in the reduction kiln, looks like this. And this isn't even the best example. It's usually a little bit darker. So you can see same clay body, different kiln atmosphere, different color there too. This is the same glaze in oxidation and reduction, so dramatically different. This is the one that is the most different. Copper carbonate, which is what makes this blue, in reduction atmospheres also often goes red. So this is what's called a copper red glaze. But in oxidation, it doesn't do that. So you can see how different the firing, how much it changes the way the glaze looks. So that's the way that you can move about kind of deciphering this. Like I said earlier, there's usually 2 dips on the right side, 1 dip on the left side. Now this is this is good information for us, but in our class I want us to be really, really careful about doing more than 1 dip. When you start to layer glazes, that's when things get really thick and that's when they like to run. So we have to be really careful about that. But you can see that glaze thickness also changes the way that glazes look. So you can see, here's a pretty good example. Thicker, it's doing this, thinner, it's this, thicker, thinner. So we're dealing with not only the clay bodies, but we're dealing with the type of kiln atmosphere, and then we're also dealing with the thickness of the application. All of those things in combination with each other change the way that glazes look. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to is that some glazes are transparent, right? We can see through them, like our clear glaze. It's a little bit hard to tell here because there's nothing behind it, but this is what a very clear glaze looks like on clay. If you had black underglaze underneath here or white slip, it would show through. So it's much more like a clear glass on top of your clay. Some glazes are very, very opaque. Like for example, this Philly green or Philly green is a very opaque glaze, and it's also not shiny. See, it's more satiny. So if you had done a lot of drawing or decorating on some of your bowls with slip or underglaze, you probably wouldn't want to put a glaze on it that's really opaque because you wouldn't see it. Okay, unless you don't like what you've done, then you can put an opaque glaze on it and cover it up. So we have gloss and we have satin. We don't have a whole lot of matte glazes. Our satin glazes are kind of, there's a spectrum. They're not just like flat satin. Some of the satins are a little bit shinier than others, but also pay attention to those surfaces because it can be nice at times if you are going to do, say, one color on the inside and a different color on the outside to match up something that's glossy with something that's also a little bit less glossy satin. So there's a variation of surface there as well, okay? Does anyone have questions about that so far? Okay. Just as an interesting side point, the things that make, the reason that glazes go matte and satin are the same things that really prevent it from being clear. So it's very hard, and maybe kind of impossible-ish, to get a matte clear glaze.